It's all going down. A United States pipeline protester's obstruction conviction has been overturned by an appeals court. Bowman live. A new trial has been ordered for Mylene Violard after Minnesota judges found pervasive prosecutorial misconduct in the Line 3 protest case. According to The Guardian, let's talk about this and find out what would happen. The controversial felony conviction of a peaceful climate activist has been overturned by an appeals court due to pervasive prosecutorial misconduct. Mylene Violard, who was 56, was found guilty of felony obstruction in 2023 for her role in trying to halt construction of a fossil fuel pipeline through indigenous territory in Minnesota in a trial beset by irregularities. So here is a photo of Mylene Violard pictured in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, in August of 2023. I like to bring visual to what I'm talking about on this program. All right, now let's talk about this article as written for The Guardian. So the judge has found that there was pervasive prosecutorial misconduct. They got caught lying. Oh, that's what it means. They got caught lying. They got caught cheating. They got caught being crooks. They got caught padding the case. And that's why the obstruction conviction was overturned by the Minnesota Appeals Court. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who may have involvement within the judicial system, just because you're being charged of something doesn't mean you're guilty. Just because they have umpteen charges against you doesn't mean you may even be convicted. They overcharge people for the purpose of trying to get a conviction. Look at how it blew up in the face of the Sean Diddy Combs' case. The main charges, they didn't even find him guilty on because they overcharged him. And the thing they should have charged him for, they didn't charge him. Violard was charged after attaching herself to a 25-foot bamboo tower erected to a block, a pumping station in Atkin County in August 2021, as part of a crackdown on nonviolent indigenous-led protests opposing the expansion and rerouting on Line 3 a 1,097-mile tar sands oil pipeline, with a dismal safety record that crosses more than 200 bodies of water from Alberta in Canada to refineries in the U.S. Midwest. According to legal groups representing the activists, Violard was among more than 1,000 arrests by Minnesota law enforcement, which, along with other agencies, reportedly received at least $8.6 million in payments from the Canadian company Enbridge behind Line 3. Look at the corruption. Law enforcement charged them, along with other agencies reportedly received this money. On Monday, the conviction was overturned in a new trial ordered by the Minnesota Court of Appeals. Prosecutors don't like that. They don't like when they have to recharge somebody, recharge them. Because that means that the pervasive irregularities that the judges found in their case proved that their case was flawed. It was proven that the prosecutors were lying. It was proved that they padded the case. So on Monday, the conviction was overturned in a new trial ordered by the Minnesota Court of Appeals. Quote, weighing the relevant factors, we conclude evidence against Violard was not particularly strong. The misconduct did not cure any prejudicial effort of the misconduct, the three-judge panel found. See, they don't want to really get on the bad side of the prosecutors. That's why they said there was no harmless error. Yes, there was harmless error. When you lie, that's harmless. It's called perjury. When you overcharge somebody knowing that you had a weak case to begin with and that the alleged evidence against them was flimsy to begin with, and now you got to go through this whole process again. I feel for people who are on the other side because I've been on the other side. I know what it's like to be falsely accused, arrested, arraigned, charged, convicted, left for dead, and you got to fight your way through it. Just because you can get a conviction, I'm talking about false convictions now. I'm not talking about people who commit terrible crimes and they deserve to go to prison. I'm talking about people who are falsely charged and you know the case is weak. I'm all for law enforcement doing their jobs, but do it with morals, with ethics, with integrity. If at the end of the day the prosecutors get a conviction based upon those things, then it's warranted. But you got to prove your case. And I will surmise, and I'll say this before I leave. Just because you or someone that you know has been charged does not mean that you are guilty of what you're being charged. A fight like hell not to go to prison. Because you become another number, you become merchandise, and a whole bunch of other things. The judge just said, quote, "We therefore conclude that the prosecutor failed to meet his affirmative obligation to ensure that Villiard received a fair trial." So she didn't receive a fair trial and instead sought a conviction at any price. Ain't that what happens every day? Talk back to me in that comment section. Either you or somebody you know is going through this. Accordingly, Villiard is entitled to a new trial, the written judgment concluded. Villiard and her legal team welcomed the ruling. That's all you want your lawyers to do is to fight for you. It is everyone's role to resist bullies and protect the only world we have that can feed and provide for all of humans and non-humans, Villiard told The Guardian in a statement, quote, close quote. "I'm glad that the appellate court recognized the plethora of misconduct from the prosecution and the judge during my trial and acknowledged the fact that the prosecutorial arguments that led to my guilty verdict was weak at best. But let's not forget that we're fighting the heavy polluter that is Enbridge. And that fight continues," Villiard said. "This case involved egregious, pervasive misconduct, and we're glad the Court of Appeals recognized that Marlene was robbed of a fair trial in this case," said Clary Glenn, one of Villiard's attorneys from the Climate Defense Project. Quote, "This system is supposed to be about accountability, but too often prosecutors are not held accountable," end quote. The Aitken County Attorney's Office has been contacted for comment. The week-long trial in August of 2021 was beset by delays and legal arguments amid multiple alleged violations by the prosecutor. In one incident, a sheriff's deputy was caught broadcasting the Zoom audio from inside the courtroom into the public hallways of the courthouse, which is used by jurors and witnesses alike in violation of sequestration rules and the court's own pretrial order barring public Zoom access to the trial. You got to fight. You can't take it lying down. You can't let people just walk all over you in a court of law. If you know that you're innocent, you fight to get exonerated. You do not plead guilty. People don't plead innocent, and innocent people don't plead guilty. In court, the prosecutor incorrectly claimed Villiard was not an American citizen. She was born in France. I think she had been trespassing when arrested, despite having been repeatedly admonished by the judge as a trespass charge was previously dismissed. But they continue the narrative. They continue to lie. They got to push it to inflame the jury. Nevertheless, Villiard was found guilty and had been facing a 12-month jail sentence at the time. She told The Guardian that she had no regrets. Overall, at least 967 criminal charges were filed including several people charged under the state's new criteria of critical infrastructure protection legislation approved as part of a wave of anti-protest laws inspired by the American Legislative Exchange Council, or ALEC, a right-wing group backed by fossil fuel companies. Isn't it amazing how the Republicans always want to be able to say what they want to say, do what they want to do when they want to do it, and the heck with everybody else? Nobody else can have the right to protest but them. Nobody else can have the right to boycott but them. Nobody else can have the right to raise their voice in opposition against tyranny and oppression. When Democrats are in power, Democrats can do no wrong. Do no right. When Barack Obama was the president of the United States, it was nothing but deep-seated hate that drove the Republican Party. And now these same hypocrites, these same devils, these same people go along with in everything. The prosecutors were wrong. What they did was wrong. And that's why the appeals court overturned the conviction and demanded and reprimanded for a new trial. So, this included Jill Ferguson, a 70-year-old grandmother from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, was found guilty of obstructing legal processes inferences with a peace office, a misdemeanor, and sentenced to 2 days in prison with time served for her role in a protest in July 2021 in Clare County. Just because you are big corporate America, that don't make you right in everything that you do. CEOs lie, cheat, and steal, and fire people every day because they won't go along with the corruption that the CEO wants them to go along with. And in closing, she said, quote, "I'm guilty of protecting the headwaters of the Mississippi River. So this is a badge of honor," Ferguson told The Guardian at the time. So I said, there's a lot going on in the country, y'all. It's a lot going on. So it doesn't matter whether it's the 80s, the 90s, or the 2000s. Injustice is injustice. And I'm going to voice my opinion and fight for those who can't fight for themselves. Never surrender. Never quit.